And the winner goes to you for subscribing to my channel. Hello, I'm Valerie. Welcome back to the Book Nook. It is award season. Book award season, specifically Edgar Award season. In today's video, which is kind of a vlog, wrap-up, mashup, I'm going to be reading all of the Edgar Award nominees for Best Paperback Original. There are 6 books total in this category, and after I read them, I'm going to take a guess as to which one I think is going to be picked as the winner on April 28th. That is when they announce the finalists for the Edgar Award. And you better believe I'm going to be back with the results and a reaction video. Before I dive into the books, I want to give you a little bit of background on the award itself. The Edgar Allan Poe Awards are popularly called the Edgar Awards. They've been around for a while, since like the 1950s. This is an award that is specific to the mystery and crime genre. It is presented and organized by the Mystery Writers of America, which according to their website is the premier organization for mystery and crime writers. Professionals allied to the crime writing field, aspiring crime writers, and folks who just love to read crime fiction. So if you're an avid mystery lover, you've probably already heard of the Edgar Awards. But if this is your first time hearing about the award, fantastic! Welcome to the Edgar Awards. There are a lot of categories in the Edgar Awards, including Best Novel, Best First Novel, Best True Fact Crime, Best Episode in a TV Series, Best Young Adult, Best Play, Best Script, even Best Radio Drama. There are some other more specific awards like the Mary Higgins Clark Award and the Sue Grafton Award, and I'm definitely not going to be able to read through all of these categories. I'm not superhuman. They released the shortlist in January, and there just was not enough time for me to read through every single list. So I'm going to be focused on fiction. I'm picking 3 of the categories to read from, and so you will be getting a series of 3 videos plus the reaction and results video. I'm going to be reading the best novel, the best debut novel, and today's video, Best Paperback Original. Some prior authors who have won the Edgar Awards include Angie Kim, Ellie Griffiths, Deepa Anapara, Jason Reynolds, Walter Mosley, Courtney Summers, Attica Locke, Noah Hawley. I could go on. So if you are a mystery crime reader and you are looking for more books to read, the Edgar Awards list, the nominee list, the short list, and the winners list is a great place to start looking for new book ideas. Okay, so with that background info, are we ready to dive into the reading? The first book in the Best Paperback Original category is The Album of Dr. Moreau by Daryl Gregory. I've never heard of this book before or this author. I'm not super keen on the cover. I'm familiar with the story of Dr. Moreau, so I assume it's going to be something to do with that, something to do with experimental hybrid human creatures and music, maybe? So like a riff off of The Island of Dr. Moreau, but make it punk rock. This book is short, it's less than 200 pages, so if it is terrible, at least it won't be terrible for too long. Looks like it's gonna be a weird one. Let's see how it goes. What the heck did I just read? This book is weird. I mean, really weird. The Album of Dr. Moreau. Let's talk about this for a second. You want to talk about this with the friends here, Charles? I mean, it is a book about animal-human hybrids, and so Charlie would probably have something to say about that. I read it in one day, not in one sitting. I kind of split it up throughout the day, but it is short. It was about 160 pages, and I was able to get through it really quickly. It was very engaging, very funny, like dry humor, just very clever in how it told this story. So the book opens with a housekeeper in this Las Vegas hotel going up to the penthouse suite where she is going to clean up after this like pop boy band that has been staying there, and I guess they're known for their partying and for getting down and dirty. So she goes into this penthouse suite, and the first thing she sees is the place is obviously just trashed. There was a huge party there. Then the next thing, she opens this bedroom door and there's just blood everywhere, and one of the boy band members is just covered in blood. So the maid goes screaming from the room to go get help. So that's how the book starts. And then slowly, through careful revelations, you begin to realize that this boy band is no ordinary boy band. Rather, it is animal-human hybrid boy band. And so like one of them is a ocelot man mix, the other's like an elephant man mix. So you have like five or six different characters, and their manager has been murdered. This detective shows up to try and figure out what the heck happened in this penthouse suite the night before. That's the setup. This book was so good. I was expecting to hate this book, to like think that it was the dumbest thing I've ever read. Like I said, this cover was not my favorite, but this book was so funny and clever, and I loved the way that it played with the detective genre and how it didn't take itself too seriously. There were a lot of moments where it was making fun of itself, where it was making fun of this genre, but also like you could tell that the author loved the detective genre. This book was just very well done for such a short book too. It was pretty clever. So if you are looking for a very twisted detective story with some science fiction elements in it, or just like a weird detective story, you're gonna want to check this one out. It's well worth the like couple hours or less that you will spend reading it. It was a lot of fun. Ryan and I came out to the beach for the week. I brought the Lighthouse Witches with me. Someone's doing some construction down there. I thought it would be a perfect book to bring to a beach house. I think it's about witches living in a lighthouse. I hope that's what it's about. I hope that it is gothic and creepy. It is giving me gothic, creepy vibes. This cover is. There's like some occult stuff on the front there, and with those spirally staircases. I'm just hoping this is going to be a really engaging, riveting read. A perfect beach read while we're here at this beach house. Let's dig in. We're back home from the beach, and I read about half of the Lighthouse Witches there, and then I finished it up here. And wow, this book went places that I was not expecting it to go. So the cover and the title were a pretty accurate representation of what this book is about. I don't even really know where to start with this book. I guess it was a dark and stormy night. The book starts with a mother who is a painter. She's a mother, and she takes her 3 daughters in the middle of the night. She packs them up, and they drive to this creepy Scottish island. There's a storm. She has been commissioned to paint a mural on an abandoned lighthouse in this small town. When she gets there, the person who owns the lighthouse isn't there. He's like out on a sailing voyage or something. And so the person she meets with is this woman who kind of is giving off creepy vibes. She gives the mother the drawing of the mural that the guy wants her to paint. And it's this weird, like, satanic symbol with a bunch of triangles and symbols. And she doesn't really understand what she's supposed to be doing here, how she's supposed to be making this, turning this thing into art. That's where we kick off with this book, but there is a lot going on here. We get multiple narrators, multiple timelines, and just kind of this shifting story, this like spiraling staircase of a story. I got sucked into the story right away. There is a very spooky, brooding, Scottish, stormy atmosphere, and then I really was engaged with the characters, with both the mother and the daughters. I enjoyed both of the timelines, and I enjoyed how we were kept in the dark for a lot of it, and then when the final reveal happened, I was like, well, that wasn't what I was expecting, but yeah, it fits. I like it. So this had all the spooky, witchy vibes that I was hoping for. I love the discussion of like reality versus insanity, or like what you think is real versus what is imagined, and pushing back against the status quo and questioning the things that you've always been told your whole life. There were some historical elements in here that are pretty cool, and some like supernatural elements that I really enjoyed. So as of right now, this book is winning the category for me. I still have I think, 4 books left to read in the paperback original category, but right now this one's taking top place. The next one I'm going to start reading, I'm going to start reading this right now, is The Shape of Darkness by Laura Purcell. There's a different cover for this one. I think that came out in England. Show you that here. So I don't know. When I first saw this paperback cover, I thought, oh, maybe this is going to be like a historical spy novel. There's like definitely some historical elements with this like creepy gas lamp and just like her long coat. But then when I saw the hardcover, I was like, oh, maybe it's just going to be more historical. I don't know, like historical crime, some Jack the Ripper kind of thing. I'm definitely thinking it's going to be historical, like old-fashioned. It's going to be shadowy. There's definitely like this shadow element on the cover. There's also this crystal ball, so I'm hoping there'll be some kind of like spiritualist element, some kind of ghostly psychic element to it. I'm not reading the back of these. I don't, I thought I would just surprise myself, dive in without reading anything about them. I have not heard of this book, but it does look like one that I will enjoy. I'm hoping for like a strong female protagonist, ghostly, spooky historical elements. This one's a pretty short one. I should be able to finish it up fairly quickly, and I will touch base with you and let you know how it goes. I feel like I should talk about this book in the shadows. I just finished The Shape of Darkness by Laura Purcell. This was not about a female spy at all. There was definitely a spiritual element to it. It is a historical novel. This is set in like a very grimy, sooty, gross, dirty Victorian era London. And we have our main character Angus, who is a silhouette artist, which is like a very fascinating thing that I didn't really know was a thing until reading this book. People come to Angus when they want their portrait done, but instead of like painting them, she cuts out silhouettes, or she'll paint their silhouette, or she has this machine that like traces your face and then will give you the silhouette. So kind of an interesting job. So we start out with Angus as the silhouette artist, and one of her customers turns up dead. She was the last person to see him. And then another person turns up dead who also got their silhouette taken from Angus. And let me tell you, for such a thin book, this is 300 pages, but still kind of a thin one, the body count in this book is astronomical. There was body after body after body. So many bodies. In addition to Angus's point of view, you will also get Pearl's point of view. And Pearl is a young lady. Nope, she's like a girl. She's like 11. And she is a medium, or her sister is setting her up as a medium. So she sees ghosts, she communes with ghosts. She is a sick child. Her father is sick. Her sister is trying to save their family by like earning money doing this spiritualist work. That's the setup. You have these two people living in, did I say London? It's not London, it's Bath. It's Victorian era Bath, England, where all the people would come for like the miracle water. And so it's grimy, it's dirty, there's definitely some shady stuff going on here. There's a serial killer apparently on the loose, and the spiritualist, the medium, the young woman Pearl, is wanting to try and find the murderer, as is Angus, the silhouette artist, who believes that the person is trying to get at her by killing these people that are coming in to have their portraits painted. Kind of a different, interesting setup. I am intrigued that this is the second book that has like supernatural paranormal elements to it in the paperback original category. So I'm wondering if, there's like a theme with these books. Probably not. I think probably the next 3 will be like very usual, real world. Something about this book didn't really feel right to me when I got to the end. I don't want to give away too many spoilers. I think part of it was that I didn't really like Angus or Pearl. I mean, they were interesting in their own right, but they were also kind of like swoony Victorian women, very weak and like, help me, I can't, I'm just losing all faculties. Then you discover some other things that are happening that kind of negate those characteristics, but still you're with those like weak characteristics for most of the book. Then by the time you get to the end, to the big reveal, I was a little bit confused. Not about how it happened, but I guess like the logistics of it. I was like, okay, I guess I can buy that, but there were some things missing for me by the time I got to the end. I'm on the fence about this one. I thought there were some really unique, interesting things about this book. I found it to be really spooky and kind of a gothic vibe, and I love like the atmosphere of the Victorian era Bath. And I really like the artistic stuff that was happening in here, as well as the spiritualist aspects, but it didn't quite all click together the way that I wanted it to. You can't love them all. So here's a conundrum. Kill All Your Darlings by David Bell is listed in the best paperback original category, but I have a hardcover version here. I think this might be the library edition. I think maybe when it came out as a paperback first. So this is actually the only book in this category that I have heard of before the nomination list was posted. I am a little bit familiar with David Bell. He's an author whose books frequently come up on my radar. I actually read one of his books last year, The Request. It was a book that I found on the sidewalk and I brought it home and read it. And it was just kind of so-so for me. It was a fun, entertaining page turner, bingeable, but I didn't really like it very much. So Kill All Your Darlings, I have heard of this book. I believe it has something to do with a writer and her professor, or maybe a stolen manuscript or something like that. I know it is a mystery involving a writer, and that's about all I know. There's obviously like kill your darlings is a very popular phrase amongst writers, and there's like paper flying everywhere around this girl, like a school thing right here. I love the colors on this cover, and I'm hoping that maybe giving David Bell a second chance, maybe I will find this book to be a little bit more engaging than the last book that I read of his. So time to dive in. I'm taking a mini road trip, and I am taking Kill All Your Darlings by David Bell with me. I have it on audiobook from the library, and so I'm going to listen to that while I drive up to Seattle. Hopefully it's entertaining. So this is a thriller set in a college university in Kentucky, and it involves a student who goes missing and a teacher who maybe steals her manuscript. This was a pretty functional thriller. It was engaging, but not really a book that's gonna stick with me. I did enjoy a lot of the aspects of it. It was a fun and entertaining read. You have this professor who has some secrets in his past. He's dealing with some grief and some trauma. Then you have this young student who she has secrets of her own, and she is trying to find her writing voice, and she is sharing a manuscript with this professor, and then maybe has second thoughts about it because, you know, sometimes books are based on real life. I listened to some of this as an audiobook and then finished reading it as a physical book. There were some exciting parts, and it was fun at times to have like the writing elements here. Like you have the writing professor, the English professors doing their English professor things, and then the up and coming artist who is like a voice that they've never heard of and they're so excited about it, but then she goes missing, and there were definitely some interesting layers at play, but there was a little bit about it that was pretty predictable. I think early on I had an idea of how this was all going to end. There were a couple twists for me, not very huge ones, but enough to keep me engaged. I don't know that I would call this dark academia. I mean, it was set in a school. The writing style didn't feel very dark academia to me. Like, you know, with the Secret History and some of those other ones, you have a very lush atmospheric style that draws you in and really plays with the emotions of the story. And this didn't really do that. This was just more of like functional writing. It worked. It didn't draw you out of the story, but there wasn't a lot of interesting things happening with the prose, with the writing style itself. It just told the story, which is fine, but it just didn't stand out to me. It was a quick thriller, entertaining. I don't know if it's an award winner though. I'm digging this comic book type cover so hard. It's so cool. I love this like femme fatale-like figure on the front. She spilled her drink. She's holding a pistol. Maybe she's swooning. Maybe she's dead. I'm not sure, but I'm definitely interested in finding out what is going on with this book. This looks like it's part of the Candace Star series, book 2 in this series. I've never heard of it, but it looks like it could be a lot of fun. I'm hoping this is going to star a wise, cracking, kick-ass female private investigator who gets herself into a lot of trouble that's hard to get out of. This comic book aspect with like the yellow cover, it's kind of giving me dark comedy, dry humor vibes. We'll see if I'm right. Oof, this book was not good. Or maybe I should say that this book wasn't for me. Let's talk about Candace Star for a minute, shall we? Candace is the main character in the book Star Sign, and when we first meet her, she is just waking up in a stranger's bed. She doesn't really know where she is or how she got there because alcohol. She is a highly functioning alcoholic. This is the second book in the Candace Star series. I have not read the first one, and so this is my first introduction to Candace, seeing her waking up not knowing where she is or how she got there. Fairly quickly into the book, we find out that Candace is or was a hit woman. She used to kill people for a living. That's what she did. That's how she made her money. She doesn't do that anymore. I think the book suggests that she is fairly recently out of jail, and so she is trying to restart her life, trying to find a new way to live and make money. She's kind of adrift, unsettled, not really sure of where she's going to go next in her life. In the first chapter, Candace gets a call from a cop who is a friend of hers from book 1, I think. And this cop tells her that they found her missing mother, or her mother who is estranged. And don't get too excited, Candace, because your mother is dead. Her mother apparently had some ties to this Italian mafia gang in Detroit and had some bad blood with that family. And so begins the book Star Sign, where our intrepid heroine, Candace Star, is setting out to investigate what happened to her mother. I started out liking this book. Candace is this biting, caustic character. She has kind of a funny wit about her. I went into it thinking it was going to be kind of a wild romp of a book, a private investigator, kind of hard-hitting feel. And there were definitely playful moments in the beginning and moments where I was really invested in the book and in the character, and I was getting excited about this book and how it would unfold. I liked the setup, I liked the premise, I liked Candace as a character at first. I started off really rooting for her, and I don't know what happened. I just think she slowly wore me down until I was just sick and tired of her. The thing about Candace is that she is very judgmental. I'm not sure why, because she's an ex-hit woman. She's a functioning alcoholic. She killed people for a living, and yet she runs into this woman who sells pot, and she treats this woman like selling pot is the worst thing anyone could do ever. And then also there's this scene where someone's vaping, and again, the worst thing anyone could do ever. And then also being a vegetarian, the worst thing anyone could do ever. And I'm like, girl, the amount of condemnation she casts on these people for smoking pot or vaping or not eating meat is a little bit ridiculous, a little bit over the top considering what Candace's history is. I just think it kind of negated her whole character where she's supposed to be this hard-edged ex-hit woman who killed people for a living, and she's just like, I don't sell drugs. Okay. That started to wear me down pretty quickly. I kind of started to lose interest in her after that. Then there were some issues with the writing itself, where in the dialogue, a lot of the times the characters would use each other's names with a frequency that was a little bit intolerable for me. Of course, you know, Candace. Don't pick up that remote control, Candace. Have you seen my shoes, Candace? And everything just started to sound a little bit sarcastic. And I don't know if it's just the name Candace, no offense. I actually like that name, but I think hearing it repeated over and over in dialogue just kind of drove me a little bit. I just started to feel like everybody was just kind of like, okay, Candace. That is such a small complaint, but for some reason, I think because it was done over and over again, it really pulled me out of the story and I couldn't really sit and settle with the character anymore. I just kept being pulled out of the story because Candace, give me a break, Candace. It just got kind of tiresome. And I know I'm being nitpicky here. I'm kind of picking on this book a lot. But even without all these kind of silly annoyances that are probably a personal preference, the biggest issue I had with this book was the ending. And that's why it's going to be hard to talk about why I didn't like this book, because I don't really want to give spoilers. That's not really what I do here. Sometimes I do, but in this case, I'm not going to. I think the reveal in this book, the twist, was problematic. There were major red flags that went up in my head as I was reading it. I got incredibly uncomfortable with how it all unfolded. And honestly, I'm not sure if this is my personal preference or if it is a larger issue. I don't know that I am the best person, the most qualified person to say whether or not this ending was terrible or not. It's so hard to talk about this book without spoiling the ending. I almost just like want somebody else to read it so I can talk about it with them and be like, hey, was this a problem? Or am I blowing it out of proportion? Obviously, it's hard to talk about this book and why I didn't like it because I didn't like the ending, and that would be a major spoiler to talk about. So I'm just gonna say that this book was just a big old fat miss for me. And I don't think you'd be missing much if you skipped it too. I mean, maybe you'll just read it to see what the ending is. Just skip to the ending, come back, let's talk. And I kind of hate giving such a scathing review about a book, but this book also gets plenty of good reviews on Goodreads, so maybe I just don't know what the hell I'm talking about. This cover is giving me very hard-boiled detective vibes, very like police procedural type book. It seems to be part of a series. I believe this is the third book in the Harry McCoy series. It says on the front, a Harry McCoy thriller. So I'm hoping that this will work as a standalone because I definitely haven't read any of the other books in this series. I'm definitely thinking that this is going to be a little on the darker side, a darker mystery, one where we see kind of the darker, more grim side of crime. We've got this shadowy figure walking down a long tunnel, which doesn't reveal very much about the plot, but it definitely makes me think we're going to get a hard-edged, grizzled, world-weary detective. Maybe he is even a recovering alcoholic, I don't know. And what I'm interested in finding out is if this book is going to break the mold at all of the police procedural detective genre, kind of the typical tropes that we see, or if it's going to just kind of fit into that category. I'm hoping that the books that are on this list, the books that were nominated for the Edgar Award, are nominated because they're a little bit different, a little bit outside the mold of the genre. And so I'm kind of hoping there's going to be something different with this one, something that makes it stand out. I really want this to like challenge the typical detective story, but let's dive in and see what we find. Now, if you want a gritty, realistic police procedural set in Scotland against the backdrop of the troubles and the conflict in Northern Ireland, then look no further than Bobby March Will Live Forever. The Unstoppable Life of Bobby March. The cover is going to be right here. All of you are going to be able to see the picture of it. Bobby March Would Live Forever by Alan Park. I loved the setting of this book. I loved the gritty realism of the Scottish police and the historical element of the troubles in Northern Ireland. I liked the discussion of class and the discussion of crime within this small community. There were plenty of twists and turns to keep me engaged in this book. There was a lot happening. From the beginning, we are introduced to our main detective, Harry McCoy, and this is the third book in a series featuring Harry McCoy. But from the beginning, we can see that Harry is on the outs with the detective group, with the detective squad that he is a part of. There's a major case that happens at the beginning of the book where a young girl goes missing, and Harry is sent off to do paperwork, to handle burglaries, to do anything other than handle this big case. The guy who's running the show is just not a big fan of Harry's, and so we spend a lot of the book with Harry moving through these smaller cases. In this novel, he's a paper pusher for most of the book. He's handling a lot of different things, and I found that to be pretty intriguing and an interesting way of writing a police procedural, because a lot of the times when we get police procedurals, we get that detective handling the biggest cases, the most dramatic cases, the ones where they're chasing the bad guys. And don't get me wrong, I love those books. I love them. But this was a little more nuanced with Harry because he didn't have the big case for much of the book. And so we see him doing a lot of other little things, supporting the police in a way that you don't normally see in detective novels. And so that was kind of interesting, just to have Harry puttering around Scotland, taking care of these smaller cases. And then, of course, as the story begins to unfold, all of the threads start tangling together again in just a very satisfying way. This book worked pretty well for me, but there were definitely times where I felt a little lost, especially with the character arcs and the character relationships, like who was who to whom. Who is this person to Harry in prior books? And I think that the reason that I felt lost was because I hadn't read the first 2 books in the series. So though I was able to follow the main mystery of the book and get kind of a satisfaction from that part of the story, I do feel like I missed out a little bit on the character arcs and the character depth and kind of the nuance of understanding who Harry was because I hadn't read the other books. I do wish that I had started at the beginning of this series rather than diving into book 3. I think I would have gotten a more layered and more nuanced understanding of the characters and of Harry, the detective that we're following. As a standalone, it lacked a little bit of depth, but I did still enjoy it. It was very realistic in its tone and in its style. There was a grittiness to it, a little bit of a rundown city feel to it, an industrial feel to it. A lot of secrets, a lot of interwoven storylines. There was one, this again is a very nitpicky thing. I feel like I'm just like very nitpicky about these books. But there was one element, it was a choice, a stylistic choice by the author to use incomplete sentences. And I know it's a stylistic choice because it happened with incredible frequency. And most of the time it really worked, but other times it kind of drew me out of the story. And I think it was the author establishing Harry's voice and kind of this gritty, hard-edged detective who doesn't need to use complete sentences all the time. I think that it was an interesting effect, an interesting way to establish voice, but it did at times feel a little bit overused to me, or times where I was like, had to read a paragraph again because I was like, wait, what exactly is happening here? Okay, yeah, so a very small complaint. I enjoyed the way this book unfolded. I just wish that I had read books 1 and 2 first so that I could better understand the character that I was following. So which one do I think will take home the prize for Best Paperback Original? After reading through all 6 books, I think there was a good spread of different kinds of books, different kinds of themes, different kind of characters, different kind of tones in this category. We had some standard mysteries, some with supernatural elements, some that were funny, some that were very serious and realistic. I know which one I would pick. But I'm having a little trouble trying to guess which one the judges are going to pick. And I don't really know who the judges are. I think they are kept secret until the actual awards ceremony. But in most cases, awards like this, the judges are other writers. And so that makes me think maybe they will pick Kill All Your Darlings by David Bell because it is a very writer-centric book. And writers love books about writers and about writing and about books. And the concept of a thriller where a professor takes advantage of one of his young writing students, that has a lot of intriguing elements to it. And I think that could be a strong contender for the prize. In addition, I think the album of Dr. Moreau was just so out there and so strange, but yet had such love and care and devotion to the detective genre that they might also pick that one. Yeah, this is a very hard choice. I don't know that I can guess what the judges of this year's award are going to pick, but if it were me, if I were the one picking, I would pick The Lighthouse Witches by C.J. Cook. That would be my winner for the Best Paperback Original category, hands down. It had a lot of different layers, it had a lot of different narrative voices, it played with family and with secrets and with suspense and with the supernatural and with history and with feminism, and there was a moodiness to it. That writing was atmospheric. So yeah, The Lighthouse Witches by C.J. Cook, that's my winner. That's the one that I would pick. That's the one I'm keeping my fingers crossed for. Come back April 29th, I think, is when I'm going to be posting a reaction and results video, so we will see if I'm right, if I picked the one that the judges picked, or if I was way off base. In the comments, let me know which one you think is going to be the winner. Thanks for watching. Stay cozy. I'll see you next time.